Let's go back to our main conversation this evening, which is this conversation about Iran. And Iran, through essentially, let's imagine a chain here where there's money in Iran, goes to somebody, goes to somebody, goes to somebody who hires local crooks in Australia to carry out crime on its behalf. Those crimes were Jewish facilities, both a synagogue and a business, one in Melbourne, one in Sydney. Greg Barton is with Deakin University. He is the Global Islamic Politics Chair, and he joins us now. He's a regular guest here on Sky News. Lovely to see you, sir. Now, Greg, we have obviously heard of a long time about how Iran is a proxy state, that in many ways it has sponsored terrorism around the world. And of course, there's not always that direct link between the bank accounts of the Islamic Guard and the soldiers on the battlefield. Now, we are not talking about a battlefield right now, but the way you get to a battlefield begins with proxy attacks like what is happening here. What's your reaction to the news of the day?
Yeah, for those who are paying attention, Paul, it's not surprising, although it's pretty significant for a government to come out and make the decision it's made, and credit to it for taking a bold decision. Iran has traditionally run on proxy powers. We think of groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, both very much diminished now, thankfully. But it also uses disinformation, information campaigns, and does that by various means. What we're seeing with the accusations now, with evidence provided, is that Iran was behind at least two major incidents over the last 12 months. Once an attack on a restaurant, a firebombing, and a firebombing of a synagogue in Melbourne, both of which could have led to fatalities, thankfully didn't. And they were done via cutouts, as Mike Burgess, head of ASIO, says. In other words, going through people who probably didn't know who was paying the bill, but offered to do took up the offer to do a criminal act for payment, not because of a conviction, just simply a profit motive, making it hard to track it back to the people providing the money, which was the Revolutionary Guards Corps, the element of the military that's behind the regime, that's really the top dog in Iran. This has happened elsewhere around the world, and we'll probably hear more stories of similar things happening, but it's a pretty significant situation in Australia to have it laid out so clearly.
Yeah, it's this thing where, at the very end of the chain, it's a fistful of dollars and losers who have no ideological view, who may well be the person who literally throws something, bash something, or worse. But again, there are more dollars and everyone's skimming off the top as it moves its way through the system. But obviously, Iran has had an eye on Australia for a long time, all right? It is often referred to as one of principally three countries that are involved in cyber espionage that has been focused on Australia. So the idea that as you say, people who haven't been paying attention might be slightly shocked, but Australia has been on Iran's list for a little while here.
It certainly has. I mean, we're not exclusive members of this list, but we are a significant middle power country. We're a member of the Five Eyes alliance with Canada and the UK, America and New Zealand. We in many respects, stand out because of our location on the planet, because of a multicultural society, because we speak up on issues of concern. And Iran wants to mess with our politics. It wants to sow dissent and doubt about our political processes and offices, but it just basically wants to distract. So when you ask yourself the question, what would the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps set to gain from trouble in Australia? It's really about playing to a domestic base in Iran and making themselves look like victims, but also strongly in charge of what's happening. They're doing this not just in Australia. We have many cases of Iranian operations in the UK and Canada and America, often targeting kidnapping and assassination. Thankfully, we're not talking about here, but we are on the global stage, whether we like it or not. And this is the sort of dark side of that reality.
It doesn't get bigger, short of, well, it always can get bigger, but it is a particularly significant step for a country to say, that's it, get your representatives out of the country, where you're essentially sort of severing the ability to have a conversation with you. The other side of that is, do you have any concern? Because during the most recent conflict between Iran and Israel, Australia was trying to airlift Iranian Australians and Israeli Australians back here, and it was almost like a 3 or 4 to 1 of the number of people that needed to get out of the region that were coming from Iran. Obviously, if we've pulled out of there and they've been booted out of here, are there real life people who get stuck in what are the necessary severing of relations because of things like this, and that is something that should be of concern to people who are planning to travel in either direction?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Paul. There's a couple of points to watch. One is the government has said it's stopping the normal diplomatic relations, but not severing communications completely. Now, how it'll do this when it declares that the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps is a terrorist group, following in the footsteps of Canada doing this last year and America doing it in 2019. It's not easy once you've declared a group to be a terrorist group. That limits your ability to communicate with them. But there are other elements in the Iranian governmental regime apparatus that are not literally connected to the Guards Corps. So perhaps that's the back channel. But it does make it much harder for the Australian government to help Australian dual nationals or other Australians who might be travelling through the region. So the advice is don't travel to Iran. If you're in Iran, leave Iran. It's hard to help Australians in Iran anyway. It's going to be harder now. But that's, this risk assessment was made on the basis that it's better to take action against the IRGC now than to live with the risk of having to operate at embassies and consulates. But none of this is easy.
Greg Barton, thank you so much for the chat. I really appreciate it.